gospel reading coming out of the 4th chapter, Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 to 11, is a perfect gospel for the very first Sunday of Lent. Because in this gospel reading, we hear about the battle between good and evil, the battle between Jesus and the devil, and repeatedly the devil tries to tempt Jesus, but every time he tries to tempt him, Jesus is able to thwart the temptations of the devil. Let's take a look how this works in verse 1 and 2 of the 4th chapter of Matthew. It starts off by saying, at that time Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and that really is a reference to our Lenten celebration. And afterward he was hungry. Now the tempter approached and said to him, if you are the Son of God, command that these stones become loaves of bread. And in verse 3 and 4, Jesus said, man does not live on bread alone. Now at that very point, Jesus is able to say no to the temptation of the devil. Now the devil is an interesting character, because the devil doesn't walk away and just say to himself, well, Jesus said no, my desire to tempt Jesus didn't work, I'll leave him alone. What the devil is going to do is going to reconstitute. You see, the devil has tenacity. He's going to say to himself, although this temptation didn't work, it doesn't mean the next one won't as well. So I'm going to sit back, plan another strategy, and coming back at Jesus again. And so he does in verse 5. Let's take a look at what he does in verse 5. Verse 5, then the devil took him, that's Jesus, to the holy city, and made him stand on the parapet of the temple that's up there in the roof, and said to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. And again at that point, in verse 6, we're going to find out that Jesus said, no, I'm not going to listen to you, devil. Now, what's amazing about the devil doesn't become exhausted with failure. As a matter of fact, sometimes he gets himself all fired up. It didn't work the first time, it didn't work the second time, but the devil's going to reconstitute. The devil's going to try to knock Jesus off of his game a third time. And what's going on here? This is really a reference to my story and your story during the season of Lent. If back there in Ash Wednesday a couple of days ago you said, during this season of Lent, I'm going to try to make sure I get a little closer to God. I'm going to try to be a good person. I want to be just like Christ. And the moment you decided to do that, if you did back on Ash Wednesday, guess who really came into your life? The devil. Because he said to himself, the last thing I'm going to allow you to do is to get close to Christ. So I'm going to do my best to tempt you, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to try it again. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try it again. Let's take a look at what happens in verse 7 of the 4th chapter of Matthew. There it is. Another time he's going to try to tempt Jesus. This time he's going to use a different strategy. Then the devil took him, that's a reference again to Jesus, up to a very high mountain, and showed him all the kings in the world and their magnificence. He's showing Jesus, and he said, all these I will give to you if you prostrate yourself and worship me. He's showing Jesus everything. Everything you see can be yours. All you got to do is prostrate yourself and worship me. All this is yours. Sounds like a very good tempt. But Jesus says what? No way. Jesus does not fall to that temptation for the third time. Although the devil is tenacious, Jesus is as well. So this gospel story is a story between good and evil and between Jesus and the devil. Just by show of hands, how many people favor Jesus? Okay, about a third of you favor Jesus. And it seemed like a little slow response, if you want my opinion. Now, let me ask you this again, because I think, really, I believe in my heart, that every hand should have went up. Because we realize that the devil is trying to knock Jesus down. The devil tries to knock us down, and many times he is successful. That's why Jesus Christ dies on the cross for our sins, because we do things wrong, and every time we do something wrong, we're saying what? Yes to the devil. I'll do what you said. I'll offend my neighbor, and I'll take what doesn't belong to me, and I'll hurt someone that I should not touch, because you're listening to the devil, and we need forgiveness. So let's try that again. Today's gospel reading is a battle between good and evil, and Jesus and the devil. How many people favor the devil? The devil has those little tricks, and I thought I could catch you. Now this time it'll be no trick. You know, the gospel reading is a story between good and evil and Jesus and the devil. How many people favor Jesus? Naturally, everyone. Yes, I want to see Jesus be victorious because that's the person I'm trying to follow. What's the beauty of Christ is this. Now, when the devil tempts you, whatever it tempts you with, it's going to look good, it's going to look palatable. You're going to say to yourself, boy, I'd sure like to do what the devil asked me to do because it just looks so enjoyable. But there's a major difference between Jesus and the devil. And the difference is this. You know, it said that Jesus and the devil, they went to the same college at the same time. And this one day, Jesus and the devil are in the library of this college, and they did a lot of research, and they're working on the computers, their individual computers, on their term papers. Now, Jesus is there after doing all the research. He's typing away on his computer, his term paper. The devil's sitting right next to Jesus on another desk, and he did all his research, and he's typing away on the computer on his term paper, putting everything together. As they're working hard on their term papers, there's a power surge, and the power goes out in that library. Now the lights go out, and the computer's shut down, and everyone's sitting there waiting for the lights to come back on. About an hour later, the lights come back on in the library. So Jesus turns on his computer, reboots his computer, brings up his term paper, and starts working again. The devil turns on his computer, reboots his computer, and this time he wants to bring up his term paper. He can't find it. It's just a dark screen. Where's my term paper? I have so much work and so much effort in this term paper. I can't find it. It's not coming up. So he's going through all of his files, and he can't find the file entitled his term paper, and he's getting really scared because he put a lot of work and effort into it. So the devil called over the librarian. Come on over. That's your question. What? The librarian said. Well, the devil said, you know, Jesus and I have been working on our term papers. The power went off, and after it came back on, we rebooted our computers, and there's Jesus. He brought up his term paper, and he's going to town working on it. But I rebooted my computer, and I went to find my term paper. I can't find it. Where is it? The librarian said, well, you know the difference between you and Jesus and why Jesus was able to bring up his term paper? And the devil said, no. And the librarian said, well, the difference is this. Jesus is able to bring up his term paper because Jesus saves. And that's what you want to remember as we travel through Lent. The devil's going to do his best, just as he did with Jesus in chapter 4, Matthew verses 1 to 11, to throw you off your game. The last thing he wants you to do is to get close to Christ. And the first thing you want to do is to get close to Christ. But the devil's always going to be working on you. If you say to yourself, on those days and those points of my life where I could care less about church and about God and about Jesus, the devil was nowhere to be found, and that is true, because he won you already. But in those points in your life when you're trying to do your best, and you're trying to be a good husband and a good wife and a good student, just a good person, you're trying to be like Christ. And every time you turn around, there's one temptation after another. Why is that? Well, as difficult as it is to say no to temptation, the feather in your cap is to know that I am doing such a good job in trying to follow Christ that the devil is right there behind me. What you want to remember as we travel through Lent, and every time the devil tempts you, and every time you say no, or if you do say yes to the devil, just remember this. The difference between the devil and the difference between Jesus is Jesus saves.